There's only two recorded histories of the bomb being deployed, and that's Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Could we see the third? Well, I certainly hope not. Welcome to our channel. Today we'll be talking about nuclear power and how it would affect the world. But before we begin, hit that subscribe button and slap that notification bell, and let's begin with the video. Now first, let's begin with the current affairs at the time of writing. It's been 4 weeks of Russians performing their special military operation on Ukraine, and reports say 44 million people have been homeless as the Russian bombs have destroyed a lot of buildings in the nation. The port of Mariupol is in flames, and the invaders are getting stalled by the Ukraine civilians while the city is caught in bombardments. Despite all the efforts, the Russians are unable to capture a single major Ukrainian city. While Western sanctions are heavily gaining on the country of Russians, the West speculated to be an attempt to seize the country's capital, Kiev, and depose the government. This might be true, but seems like the Russian forces are failing despite being superior. The invading forces have taken huge loss, and it seems like most of the time they've been frozen at one place while they face a shortage in almost everything. By the end of this invasion, it seems like every Ukrainian is going to have a free tank with them. But the images that appear from the satellite are gruesome, and there's no doubt that chaos, besides all of the bravery among Ukrainian civilians, is settling in. It seems like Russia's combat power has declined below 90% as compared to the annexation of Crimea. Now with a new threat arising, this seems like it could be even scarier, as President Volodymyr Zelensky said the Russian forces were targeting the exclusion zone around the dysfunctioning Chernobyl nuclear plant. Now, I know that no country leader in their right mind would initiate a nuclear attack, as it's more damaging than anything else. But if the Chernobyl nuclear plant is disrupted and disturbed by these Russian bombs, then that would be equivalent to opening Pandora's box. This begs the question, should there be a nuclear war? Well, the Japanese are one of the most persistent people, and during World War II, Japan's military strength was considerably powerful, and they weren't stopping. That is when, in the other picture, scientists were preparing the nuclear bomb. Americans asked Japan to stop, but they didn't, and they were forced to use the weapon. 2 bombs were dropped in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Now a nuclear bomb has both immediate and delayed destructive effects. As soon as a nuclear bomb is detonated, the blast will cause heavy damage around the impact radius. Then the heat from the bomb will become a huge thermal fireball, causing a high-pressure wave to develop, devouring anything that is caught in it. The air around the impact radius is pushed along with the force that increases the damage radius. The accelerated air creates a hurricane-like ferocious wind that creates dynamic pressure, and these together cause mini air pocket blasts that are equally dangerous. The impact could last depending upon the blast strength and the area of influence. But this is true for most of the bombs, but a nuclear bomb has serious after effects. The heat generated could be as hot as the sun, which means it could melt just about anything. The first fireball is full of UV rays and radiation, and the second pulse uses pure thermal radiation. Now, if we are lucky, the day might be cloudy, saving us from the worst of it. But if the weather is clear, then it goes on full throttle. Now, these effects are benevolent if we consider the after effects. Do you know about Eben Myers? He lost his jaw due to the high consumption of radioactive water. Radithor was like a concoction made by William Bailey from the Bailey Radium factories, which was prescribed to Eben Myers for fast healing. Radium necrosis is an occupational disease brought on by the absorption of radium into the bones of radium dial painters. Radium girls were female workers in a factory that made luminous paints. They ingested radium, which caused radium poisoning. Or have you heard about Hisashi Oshi? He absorbed 17 sieverts of radiation. The radiation burns after a freak accident made his skin melt. I would not want to go into too much detail, but if you Google his name, you would know. These are the adverse effects of radiation. Now let's look at Japan. After the bomb was dropped in Japan in 1945, it devoured an estimated 140,000 people in Hiroshima and 64,000 in Nagasaki. There were survivors, and just when they thought that the worst was over, radiation got the best of them. They would gradually succumb to chronic illnesses like leukemia, cancer, and many other terrible effects. The atomic bomb is like 15,000 tons of TNT wrapped into one. The bomb made it rain radiation on the land with temperatures as high as 4,000 degrees Celsius. Now, the first response team, that is firemen, medics, or other aid organizations, would not be able to help at all. Simply, the burn beds would not be enough to begin with. And it was reported that 90% of the nurses and physicians were either dead or injured, and the hospitals could not function. Furthermore, the people who entered the impact zone died from the radiation. Now, the fireball from the bomb only takes 10 seconds, but the effect lasts over a decade and it spans over generations to come. It is reported that even after 6 years, Japan faced gruesome effects like leukemia, and the survivors began suffering from cancer of the breasts, lungs, thyroid, and other at higher rates. Now let's look at the after effects. It's clear that using a nuclear bomb is the greatest attack on humanity, and it's morally wrong on so many levels. There's no doubt that there is destruction, and this would trigger large-scale migration and jeopardize human health and well-being, and not to forget the long-term damage to life-sustaining elements, damages to the environment, socio-economic jeopardy, infrastructure, and overall chaos. The detonation of these bombs will lead to global famine, increase the number of radiation all around the globe, which would lead to the cooling of the atmosphere, which would make the season shorter, reducing agriculture, causing food shortages. These bombs, if dropped on Ukraine, will even affect Russia and all other neighboring countries. The scale of destruction would be very hard to amend and cause political and social disruptions. Recovery could take decades, and the development would be largely hindered. Humans will have a shorter lifespan, and infant mortality rates will plummet. They say that women and children will be affected by this ionized radiation, damaging their reproductive tissues. Nuclear is an extinction-level threat, and it scares me down to my bone to even think about an atomic bomb falling on any land regardless of the boundary. There have been numerous reports since 1945 where there have been close calls where these lethal weapons were nearly deployed to eradicate enemy forces. This is very disturbing, how the destruction has become a condition. Nations holding each other at a nuclear point by non-state actors. Human errors like a simple misunderstanding could destroy the whole planet. Or we're merely a cyber attack away from extinction. The only thing that is stopping a nation from using an atomic bomb is a policy, and that is not assuring enough. Technology is a major issue. They depend and interrelate, which might affect the decision-making system. It could be difficult to detect, leading to a miscommunication that could cost us our home planet. Now, should there be a nuclear war? I'm sure that regardless of the magnitude, a nuclear detonation will cause mass hysteria and global anxiety. Well, let's look at nuclear testing areas now. These include Marshall Islands, Kazakhstan, Algeria, and the United States. Even though the masses are not informed about the after effects, these ionizing radiation released after the testing are kept secret, which is concerning, as this needs to be very and let them know what they're being subjected to. I would like to conclude by saying there should be no nuclear war at all. There should even be no war, ever. Thank you so much for watching. Please leave a like if you think this deserves it, and we'll see you next time on the channel.